The Cyclic Cross of Hendaye by Fulcanelli. Hendaye, a small frontier town in the Basque Country, has its little houses huddled at the foot of the first spurs of the Pyrenees. It is framed by the grassy ocean, the broad, swift, and shining Bidasoa, and the grassy hills. One's first impression on seeing this rough and rugged landscape is a rather painful and almost hostile one. On the horizon over the sea, the natural austerity of the wild scene is scarcely relieved by the headland of the Fuenterrabia, showing ochre in the crude light, thrusting into the dark, green-grayish, mirror-calm waters of the Gulf. Apart from the Spanish character of its houses, the type of dialect of the inhabitants, and the very special attraction of a new beach, bristling with proud villas, Hendaye has nothing to hold the attention of the tourist, the archaeologist, or the artist. Leaving a station, a country road skirting the railroad line leads to the Parish Church situated in the middle of the village. This church, with its bare walls and its massive squat rectangular tower, stands in a square a few steps above the ground level and bordered by leafy trees. It is an ordinary dull building which has been renovated and is of no particular interest. However, near the south transept there is a humble stone cross, as simple as it is strange, hiding amidst the greenery of the square. It was formerly in the parish cemetery, and it was only in 1842 that it was brought to its present site near the church. At least, that was what was told to me by an old Basque man who had for years acted as a sexton. As for the origin of this cross, it is unknown, and I am not able to obtain any information at all about the date of its erection. However, judging by the shape of the base and the column, I would not think that it could be before the end of the 17th or beginning of the 18th century. Whatever its age, the Hendaye cross shows by the decoration of its pedestal that it is the strangest monument of primitive millenarianism, the rarest symbolical translation of Chiliasm, which I have ever met. It is known that this doctrine, first accepted and then refuted by Origen, St. Denis of Alexandria, and St. Jerome, although it had been condemned by the Church, was part of the esoteric tradition of the ancient Hermetic philosophy. The naivety of the bas-reliefs and their unskillful execution lead one to suppose that these stone emblems were not the work of a professional sculptor. But aesthetic considerations apart, we must recognize that the unknown workmen who made these images possess real and profound knowledge of the universe. On the transverse arm of the cross, a Greek cross, is found the following inscription, consisting of two strange parallel lines of raised letters, forming words almost running into each other, in the same order as I give here. O crux avas pesunica. Certainly, it is easy to recognize the well-known phrase, O crux avas pesunica, Hail, O cross, the only hope. However, if we were to translate it like a schoolboy, we should not know the purpose either of the base or of the cross, and we might be surprised by such an invocation. In reality, we shall carry carelessness and ignorance to the pitch of disregarding the elementary rules of grammar. The masculine pes in the nominative requires the adjective unicus, agreeing in gender, and not the feminine unica. It would therefore appear that the corruption of the word spes, hope, into pes, foot, by dropping the initial consonant, must be the unintentional result of a complete lack of knowledge on the part of our stonecutter. But does inexperience really justify such uncouthness? I cannot think so. Indeed, a comparison of other motifs, carried out by the same hand and in the same manner, shows evident care to reproduce the normal positioning, a care shown both in the placing and in the balance of the motifs. Why should the inscription have been treated less scrupulously? A careful examination of the latter shows that the letters are clear, if not elegant, and do not overlap. No doubt our workmen traced them first in charcoal or chalk, and this rough draft must rule out any idea that a mistake occurred during the actual cutting of the letters. However, since this apparent mistake exists, it follows that it must have been intended. The only reason that I can think of is that it was designed to put it on purpose, concealed under the appearance of an inexplicable blunder, and intended to arouse the curiosity of the observer. I will, therefore, state that, in my opinion, it was with knowledge and intent that the author arranged the inscription of his puzzling work in this way. I had already been enlightened by studying the pedestal, and knew in what way and by what means what key of the Christian inscription of the monument should read, but I was anxious to show investigators what help may be obtained in solving hidden matters from plain common sense, logic, and reasoning. The letter S, which takes on the curving shape of a snake, corresponds to the Greek chi, X, and takes over its esoteric meaning. In the helicoidal track of the sun, having arrived at the zenith of its curve across space at the time of the cyclic catastrophe, it is a theoretical image of the beast of the apocalypse, of the dragon, which on days of judgment spews out fire and brimstone on macrocosmic creation. Thanks to the symbolic value of the letter S, displaced on purpose, we understand that the inscription must be translated in secret language, that is to say, in the language of the god, or the language of the birds. And that meaning must be found with the help of the rules of diplomacy. Several authors, and particularly Gresset d'Orsay, in his analysis Song de Polifal, published by the Revue Britannica, have given these sufficient clearly to make it unnecessary for me to repeat them. We shall then read in French, the language of the diplomats, the Latin, just as it is written. Then, by making use of the permutation of vowels, we shall be able to read off the new words, forming another sentence, and re-establish the spelling, the word order, and the literary sense. In this way, we obtain the following strange announcement. Il est éthique qu'il lève refuge in un seul espace. It is written that life takes refuge in a single space. And we learn that a country exists where death cannot reach man at the terrible time of the double cataclysm. As for the geographical location of the promised land from which the elite will take part in the return of the golden age, it is up to us to find. For the elite, the children of Elias will be saved according to the word of Scripture, because their profound faith, their untiring perseverance and effort, will have earned for them the right to be promoted to the rank of the disciples of the Christ light. They will bear his sign and will receive from him the mission of renewing for regenerated humanity the chain or tradition of humanity which has disappeared. The front of the cross, the part which received the 3 terrible nails fixing the agonized body of the Redeemer to the accursed wood, is indicated by the inscription INRI, carved on its transverse arm. It corresponds to the schematic image of the cycle, shown on the base. Thus we have 2 symbolic crosses, both instruments of the same torture. Above is the divine cross, exemplified the chosen means of expiation. Below is the global cross, fixing the pole of the northern hemisphere and locating in time the fatal period of this expiation. God the Father holds in his hand this globe, surmounted by the fiery sign. The 4 great ages, historical representations of the 4 ages of the world, have their sovereigns shown holding this same attribute. They are Alexander, Augustus, Charlemagne, and Louis XIV. It is this which explains the inscription INRI, exoterically translated as Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, but which gives to the cross its secret meaning, Igni natura renover integra. By fire, nature is renewed whole. For it is by fire and in fire that our hemisphere will soon be tried. And just as by means of fire, gold is separated from impure metals, so Scripture says the good will be separated from the wicked on the great day of judgment. On each of the 4 sides of the pedestal, a different symbol is to be seen. One has the image of the sun, another of the moon, the third shows a great star, and the last a geometric figure, which, as I've just said, is none other than the diagram used by the initiates to indicate the solar cycle. It is a simple circle divided into 4 sectors by 2 diameters, cutting each other at right angles. The sectors each bear an A, which shows that they stand for the 4 ages of the world. This is a complete hieroglyph of the universe, composed of the conventional signs for heaven and earth, the spiritual and temporal, the macrocosm and the microcosm, in which major emblems of the redemption, cross, and the world circle are found in association. In medieval times, these 4 phases of the great cyclic period, whose continuous rotation was expressed in antiquity by means of a circle divided by 2 perpendicular diameters, were generally represented by the 4 evangelists, or by their symbolic letter, which was the Greek alpha, or more often still by the 4 evangelical beasts surrounding Christ, the living human representation of the cross. This is the traditional formula, which one meets frequently on the tympana of Roman porches. Jesus is shown there seated, his left hand resting on a book, his right raised in the gesture of benediction, and separated from the 4 beasts which attend him by an ellipse called the mystic almond. These groups, which are generally isolated from each other, seen by a garland of clouds, always leave their figures placed in the same order, as may be seen in the Cathedrals of Chartres, the Royal Porthole, and Le Mans, the West Porch, in the Church of the Templars at Luz, and at the Church of Chivray, Vienne, on the porch of St. Tryphemy of Arles. And before the throne, writes St. John, there was a sea of glass, like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne, and round about the throne, were 4 beasts full of eyes before and behind. And the first beast was like a lion, and the second beast like a calf, and the third beast had a face like a man, and the 4th beast was like a flying eagle. This agrees with Ezekiel's version. And I looked, and behold, a great cloud, and fire enfolding itself, and brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof as the color of amber, out of the midst of the fire. Also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures. As for the likeness of their faces, the 4 had a face of a man, and the face of a lion on the right side, and the 4 had the face of an ox on the left. The 4 also had the face of an eagle. In Hindu mythology, the 4 equal sectors of the circle, formed by the cross, were the basis of a strange, mystical conception. The entire cycle of human evolution is figured there in the form of a cow, symbolizing virtue, each of whose 4 feet rests on one of the sectors representing the 4 ages of the world. In the first age, corresponding to the Greek age of gold, and called the Kali Yuga, or age of innocence, virtue is firmly established on earth. The cow stands squarely on 4 legs. In the Treta Yuga, or second age, corresponding to the age of silver, it is weakened and stands only on 3 legs. During the Tavabara Yuga, or third age, which is the age of bronze, it is reduced to 2 legs. Finally, in the age of iron, our own age, the cyclic cow, or human virtue, reaches the utmost degree of feebleness and senility. It is scarcely able to stand, balancing only on 1 leg. It is the 4th and last age, the Kali Yuga, the age of misery, misfortune, and decrepitude. The age of iron has no other seal than that of death. Its hieroglyph is a skeleton bearing the attributes of Saturn, the empty hourglass, symbol of time run out, and the scythe, represented in the figure 7, which is the number of transformation or destruction, of annihilation. The gospel of this fatal age is the one written under the inspiration of St. Matthew. Matthias, Greek, comes from which means science. This word has given us study, knowledge, and to learn. It is the gospel according to science, the last of all but us for the first, because it teaches us that, save for a small number of elite, we must all perish. For this reason the angel was made the attribute of St. Matthew, because science, which alone is capable of penetrating the mystery of things, of beings and their destiny, can give man wings to raise him to knowledge of the highest truths and finally to God. The Cyclic Cross of Hendaye by Master Alchemist Fulcanelli.